and we are in opposition to the bill in its present form. However, I would like to thank Chairman Taylor for having met with us, allowing us to express our concerns, share with us some of his goals for the bill, and we do very much look forward to working with you as you continue this process. We owe you language on the confidentiality issue, and we will get that to you, and I apologize. Our concerns are fairly limited as a TTLA. They are predominantly related to confidentiality under the bill and the single adjuster problem that has been discussed already. There are some provisions which would make the process of adjusting and the processing of handling claim confidential under the government code and specifically by this chapter. And if we're going to take reforms, the TWIA reforms, we're going to extend those to these private carrier adjusters, then there needs to be some opportunity for accountability. And one of those would be through Public Records Information Act requests, through the media's review and investigation. Even if we as lawyers can't hold them accountable, hopefully either the government or other entities will do so. And so we are deeply concerned about the confidentiality. The second issue that we have is the single adjuster rule. In this instance, the bill does transfer those very significant Seventh Amendment right to jury trial eliminating provisions under TWIA to a private carrier. We're extending those now out beyond the government to a private carrier. He is doing the job, or she is doing the job, as Chairman Taylor said, of a TWIA adjuster, and that's the underlying rationale of doing so. But our view would be that the language needs to be clarified so that that adjuster cannot take back to his private carrier when they are dealing with their own contracting claim, the private casualty contract, that those provisions don't go back with them. And you're going to have, and we've certainly seen, opportunities for mixed claims. Claims that involve wind, water, potentially property casual. You have a mixing of those claims. And we've certainly seen, whether it be in Sandy or Katrina, that there are moments and instances where damage gets moved towards one policy or the other depending upon who benefits. And so in a situation where you have multiple causative events, multiple claims at issue, then we think that those protections should not apply so that they can be held accountable. As a resident of a Tier 1 county, my last comment would be that Chairman Taylor has a number of excellent ideas with respect to how the administrative costs are going to be saved. We would certainly like to see those directly applied to the premium benefits, quantified and then directly applied to premium reductions. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Senator Taylor, hold on
Yeah,
one second.
yeah, thank you, Mr. Blevins. And we have had some good discussions on this.
Yes, sir.
I guess if you look back at the experience we had with Hurricane Ida,
Yes, sir.
for example, and TWIA was using independent adjusters at that time. Are you aware of any independent adjusters paying any lawsuits?
Paying any lawsuits? Independent adjusters? I mean, they've certainly adjusted and paid claims.
But I mean, as far as being under litigation, are you aware of any independent adjusters that had to pay a lawsuit because of their malfeasance or whatever?
I'm aware that independent adjusters were sued, and along with the carrier that they were acting on behalf of.
Well, in this case, I'm referring to TWIA. So, yeah.
Okay. And so in that instance, I don't know that an independent adjuster would have paid that claim versus TWIA paying it on behalf of its employee and agent at that time.
Well, I'll just say from my experience, what I looked at in the numerous files we've looked at and in the reports we've gotten, TWIA paid all those claims. So the suit, they may have sued the adjuster as well as TWIA, but TWIA stepped up and paid all those claims on behalf of the adjuster. So when you talk about extending these protections and going beyond government, an independent adjuster by definition is an independent adjuster, and they weren't part of the TWIA organization as an employee. They were already outside of the government per se, as you said.
And in this instance, you would have for instance, State Farm as the underlying property casualty company would have an adjuster that they employ on a full-time basis, realistically, and that they would be adjusting the TWIA claim or the TICA claim now. And so at that point under the bill, they become an agent for TICA. The insurance company, State Farm, private company, becomes an agent of TICA. And therefore, all of those protections that were passed in 2011 now apply to them. I understand the rationale in the context of just the TICA claim. Our concerns are making sure that that language is tight enough that those protections do not go back towards the private carrier when they're adjusting their own policy, the property and casualty, and that in those moments where there are mixed potential causative elements and mixed claims, there where you do have that potential for shifting of damage one direction or the other, that in that moment perhaps it's not appropriate to give them those protections.
And you and I have had that discussion
Yes, sir.
about split perils. You know, typically on these type of policies, you're talking about wind versus water. And frankly, flood, I can't do anything about. That's going to be separate. The federal government is going to do that. But have you been able to come up with any examples of where we'd have a split peril on a wind-related?
You could end up with a windstorm that results in down power lines that causes a fire, for instance. You could have a situation where you have a storm.
But real quick, on that, if the wind caused the event and the house catches on fire, for example, the wind is still going to cover that claim.
The wind would be part, but there could also be arguments that there was something defective about where the poles were, how they were maintained. Perhaps, again, we've seen the insurance industry claim defects in home construction to avoid wind damage. We've seen them claim an alternate to other causative elements to try to get away from coverage. So again, I agree with you. The most common example that we've seen, certainly in Ike, for instance, is a wind versus water. But in those moments where you have, whether it's wind and water or wind, water, and casualty, the question is, don't the advantages decline for extending those protections and the need for accountability go up?
Would you agree that those split peril cases are going to be pretty rare?
I believe that those involving strictly wind and casualty would be rare.
Okay. So, and thank you. Appreciate
Yes, sir.
it. And we'll look forward to, getting that wording on the confidentiality. In my understanding, the confidentiality, we had talked about initially the claims, and that certainly was never the intent. Obviously, an insured should have access to their claim file.
Yes, sir.
I think it had to do more with policyholder information and prevent the third-party administrator from giving out that information to somebody else or that type of thing.
Yes, sir. You were very
Working on
specific,
that.
and you were very specific. That was not your intent.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Taylor.